Okay, welcome to Chapter 20. Chapter 20 is all about drawing graphics. So this is kind of be a tremendous departure about all the layout things that we've learned in the past. In fact, we're not going to be using any layout at all. Okay, so drawing graphics on page 483, there's a couple of terms you need to know. One of them is called the canvas, and the other is the surface. And those are just kind of special terms, but the surface that you draw upon is a thing called a bitmap. In other words, you built basically, well, it's kind of hard to explain. All right, let's say you're an artist and you want to paint on a canvas. The canvas itself is not the place where you're actually putting the paint. I know that sounds weird. In this case, it's you have a canvas and then you put a bitmap on top of the canvas and you paint on the bitmap. I know it sounds a little weird, okay? So the thing that you draw upon, the surface that you draw upon, is actually the bitmap. Okay, just say. Okay, so the canvas is a class that's used for has an awful lot of drawing related things in it. You know, like how to draw a circle and, you know, how to draw a rectangle. And that's the class that's used for all the drawing. The bitmap, on the other hand, is used by Canvas as the surface. That's where the resulting thing is going to magically appear. So that's what we're after. On page 484, they talk about the paint. Okay, so paint is just like in an artist analogy. You know, the paint brush, you know, is it a thick brush or a thin one? And what color did you dip it into? And that kind of stuff. So the stroke and the width and the color, right? Those are all associated with the paint part. Okay. All right. So on page 485, they start talking about the image view guy. Now, this is the typical way we start an application now, because, you know, we go in and we go in here and we change this thing to a linear layout and blah, 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 blah. We're not actually going to do any of that. We're not going to use any layout at all. Okay? Sounds a little weird. So first thing I'm going to do is go here to my main activity and actually just kind of comment this guy out, because I don't need him. We're not doing that. Okay. So if I want to create a bitmap that's got circles and squares and, you know, whatever, right? You're going to be doing all that stuff on a bitmap, and then you should consider making the image view as the control that maintains this, you know, the content for your thing. And so instead of using set view content for that, we're going to be doing a set view content on the actual thing called an image view. Okay, so it's not really a layout, it's a control. Okay, that's a little different, because up to now, this guy has always been a layout, not now. Okay, cool. So there's a quick summary on page 485, and it's pretty easy to follow. So every start starts with activity. Well, I'm using app-compat. By the way, apparently there was some changes since the book has been written, so some of the examples they talk about are a little weird, so just bear with me. I'll point out when there's some differences. So every app starts with activity, or in our case, app-compat activity. Normally you'd use a layout, but you don't have to. You can use an image view. The canvas class just provides the methods that you use to do the draw. The canvas uses the paint class to select colors and that kind of thing. The bitmap is what gets drawn upon, and then you put the finished bitmap in the image view. Okay. So we're going to need all four of those things in order to pull this off. We're going to need an image view, a bitmap, a canvas, and paint. So let's just begin. And most of the time you would just do them like inside the onCreate, but I'm going to go ahead and do them up top the way we kind of sort of normally do. I mean, there's no real need to do that, but just bear with me. Okay. So, by the way, I'm not using the designer at all, right? I'm not doing anything in XML. Okay, so I say, I want an image view. An image view guy. And let's call him, I don't know, what do you want to call this guy? I'm going to follow my script here so I don't get messed up. I'm going to call him my image view. Cool. And then next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create me a bitmap. I'm going to call it my bitmap. And then I need a canvas. I'm going to call it my canvas. And then I need a paint, and I'm going to call it my paint. Not very imaginating names. Okay, so cool. I need to go in here and do the thing we always do to get this guy to work. Where I import the class, and import the class, and import the class. Okay, cool. So typically inside the onCreate is where you would do this. This is where you would instantiate those things. But although these are controls, they are, well, the image view definitely is a control. I'm still not going to like inflate them from my XML file because I'm not even using the XML file. So I can't inflate something that doesn't exist. Okay, just saying. So what we're going to do, we're just going to build them by hand. Okay, cool. So here we go. So just kind of following along with what they have in the book. I'm going to do width. Width in pixels, because that's what they kind of have. And so let's make that equal to 800. And then we'll do height in pixels. Let's make that 600. So that's how big our guy is going to be. Okay, so now I need to create me a new bitmap. So it's my bitmap is equal to, and this is a, so we have all these static classes where they have a create bitmap guy. That's exactly what I want. I want to create bitmap. So create bitmap, except this time I'm going bitmap. I'm going to give it some stuff. I'm going to tell it my width in pixels, and then my height in pixels, and then I'm going to give it this color configuration file. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just do this, and then I promise we'll come back and figure out what it all means. So I'm going to say bitmap dot, and get config up here, dot, and then I'm going to pick one of these guys. I'm going to pick the one that's ARG 88888. Okay. And again, trust me, we'll come back and get that in a minute. All right, so what I've done is I've created a brand new bitmap, and I told it how the color depth, that's what this means. And again, I promise we will come back to that. So now I have a bitmap. Cool. So now I need a canvas. So my canvas is equal to new canvas. And what I do is I pass it my bitmap. That makes sense. Cool. So now I have access to all these controls that I need to be able to do things. And then I do my image view is equal to new image view. And this time I'm just going to use the this placeholder. The list placeholder basically just says, I don't really have an antecedent kind of a thing, so just make this the parent of that. Okay, cool. Okay. So then I would do my paint is equal to new paint. Like that. Okay, cool. Hey, let's just run the thing and see what happens. I mean, what do we got so far? I mean, I built a bitmap, I built a canvas, I built an image view, but have I told it how to display the image view? Let's just see what happens. I'm kind of curious. Let's see what it do. And I got nothing, which is kind of sort of what you'd expect, right? Okay, kind of sort of makes sense. I mean, I don't have any layout, and I haven't told it anything, right? Cool. Okay, so to make this thing work, I need to add some more things to it. Okay, so basically I'm going to go in here and say my image view dot set image bitmap. Set image bitmap. And which bitmap is it? Well, it's the one we have. My bitmap. Okay, so now I've linked the two things together, and so the last thing I need to do is to do the normal set content view thing, like we normally would have done if this was a layout. So set content view. And now we're going to do a set content view, and we're just going to tell it my image view. Okay, so now we've got something. I mean, again, it's not going to show anything on the screen yet, but we can do some stuff. Okay, so at least we got this part. Okay, so let's basically just review. So let's just review what we got so far. There's an awful lot of moving parts to this thing. So I create a bitmap, and then a canvas, which I haven't used yet. And then I create an image view, and then I create a paint thing that we haven't used yet. And then I tell my image view that I want to use the bitmap, and then I do the set content view like we normally would have done. So this is going to display the guy that we've drawn upon, okay? That kind of sort of makes sense? Okay, so there's kind of a demo on page 488 that talks about, you know, how to do this, how to do what we just did. Select the empty activity just the way we've always done. They're talking about, you know, using the normal activity. I don't see why. I'm going to use the app activity guy. Comment out the guy like we just did. And now let's talk about what the heck this BitmapConfig guy is. So, BitmapConfig is a way to tell the machine how deep the color palette is. So, an alpha 8, which means there's a transparency guy. And there's one that says this field is, well, whatever. There's 4 bits. And this is each pixel is stored on 4 bytes. So this is, you know, 4 bytes times 3 pixels. This is 24-bit color. Maybe that makes a little bit more sense to you. So there's 1 byte for the red, green, blue. You've heard these terms, right? RGB and alpha, maybe? Red, green, and blue, and alpha being the transparency part. And so each one of those takes up a byte. So that's 4 bytes is 32-bit, you know, 64-bit, all those kind of things. Okay, good. All right. So there's different types. And so we basically just picked the big one, okay, because that's just basically the way to go now, right? I want 24-bit color palette. That's what I want. So therefore, this is what that thing means. There are some others, but quite frankly, I probably would never use them. Okay, so 24-bit color and an alpha channel. So one more time, an alpha, red, green, and blue. So what's alpha? Yeah, alpha is like the transparency guy. Okay, now sometimes when you do one of these things, you need to represent a particular color that you're after. So on page 491, they start talking about the color brush. So this is kind of complex, and I'm not trying to turn you guys into artists or anything, so just bear with me. So if I want to pick white, for example, that would be 100% red, 100% green, and 100% blue. And if this exists in 1 byte, like we have 24-bit color, that would be the value of 255, 255, 255. Okay? Now, if I was to pick something else, well, this is an awful lot of red, a little bit of green, a little bit of blue, and this is the hexadecimal value. I know it's a little weird. By the way, you can use red, green, and blue. There's no alpha in this one particular example. Or you can use hue, saturation, and value. Okay? Again, if you're an artist or if you're really into graphical arts, you can definitely get a kick out of this, but otherwise just kind of move on. What most people do is they just pick colors like, okay, I'll take that one. Well, luckily, in the Android world, there's some standard color names, and they use the exact same color names as they do in the HTML world. So, you know, light green, you don't have to go in there and tell it some hexadecimal value or some R and a G and a B kind of a thing. You can just tell it what the color by its name, and it's a heck of a lot easier to do that way, right? Okay, so we're coming up on the 15-minute mark, so you guys know how this works.